What's going on, everybody? Ninja Star here, and today we are back at again with our One Piece video for you all. Now, today's One Piece video, we're going to be talking about the one, the only Monkey D. Luffy, the main protagonist of a lot of our favorite series, and let's get right to it. You all saw the thumbnail, you read the title. We're going to be talking about Luffy's rival. Now, the interesting thing about Luffy compared to a lot of other shonen protagonists is he doesn't really have a concrete rival. What I mean by that is, you know how Goku has Vegeta, Naruto has Sasuke, Asta has Yuno, Deku has Bakugo, Yusuke has Hiei, and so on and so forth. There's also a few others that I'm forgetting at the top of my head. I don't know. The point is, a lot of these general kind of battle shonen have a rival for our main protagonist. A lot of the times, like, the rival ends up being kind of central to the main cast. Like, it's usually sometimes like a friendly rivalry, sometimes it's a very serious one at first, but then it becomes friendly, or whatever the case may be. But the interesting thing about Luffy is he doesn't really have a rival. I mean, a lot of our main cast just kind of gets along with each other. Granted, Zoro and Sanji do have a rivalry, so Oda's definitely implemented that into the series, but I mean, as far as Luffy, the main characters, he doesn't really have one, and I think it's interesting because I don't think he would see himself having a rival. He kind of just wants to mainly focus on himself, build other people up rather than competing with someone else in that matter. I don't see him more so as like a person who would be invested too much into a rivalry, but I can also see some arguments being made where maybe someone like Blackbeard is his rival and not so much like a friendly one, like with, you know, Asta and Yuno, or like Goku and Vegeta now, or whatever the case may be. I think with Luffy and Blackbeard, which is a lot of, in my opinion, I think Luffy and Blackbeard are like the biggest foils in One Piece, characters that have had like kind of similar upbringings but are very different in contrast, but they're being both built up. Like, they were, like, Blackbeard was introduced in Jaya, and he and Luffy kind of said to think at the same time. There was definitely some parallels to be made between them. And I mean, they both become technically Yonkos, if you still want to consider Luffy one. I know the big news argument's kind of up there, but like, yeah, no, they've both been rising in prominence throughout their journeys, and there's been, like, you know, some hinting and some foreshadowing, and a lot of evidence can be gathered to where Luffy's going to face off Blackbeard, like end of series, final battle, whatever. You know, he faced off against him and Impel Down. There definitely seems to be a lot of tension there, considering Blackbeard was kind of the catalyst for Ace to end up dying, because, well, it was Sakazuki that ended up doing the killing him. Blackbeard was the one who went through the trouble of capturing Ace. He's caused so much mayhem in the world, and he's a very interesting contrast to Luffy. They're both free-spirited pirates, whereas Luffy's a lot more, they both are kind of pure, but Luffy is, I guess you could say, pure of heart, whereas Blackbeard is pure of evil. They're both, as we know, the only Ds to be considered Yonko, and that being said, its rivalry, if you want to consider it that, is a lot different than these other ones, considering Blackbeard is barely in the series, you know, because he only really shows up incidentally. I mean, spoilers for the manga stuff, but he does appear actually in one of the more recent chapters of One Piece, and we see how well he's doing. And I mean, his bounty's higher than Luffy. I mean, Blackbeard always has been higher than Luffy, but there's always been still that hinting that they're eventually going to meet up and they're eventually going to fight for the One Piece, because Blackbeard also, you know, has the same goal as Luffy. And if there's two pirates out there who are most likely to become Pirate King, it's between Blackbeard and Luffy. It's between either of them, and there's definitely an interesting foil between them, or like parallel, or differences too. It's very interesting to look at. But then you also have people like Eustace Kid, who, you know, Luffy and Kid are both supernovas. Now, Luffy and Kid, as we've seen in the recent chapter of One Piece, they definitely have this interesting dynamic together. You know, it's like this, it is like a friendly rivalry thing, but it's also kind of like a typical shonen rivalry, like a lot of the gags and all that. That gives me such like it reminds me of the filler in the Buu saga of Dragon Ball Z, where Goku and Vegeta are basically like trying to get out of Buu. I thought that was really, really funny back when I saw it, and I mean, like, that's what I recalled back to. I'm like, all right, they're both trying to get out of this place, or they're both like kind of working together, and they both eat a lot, you know. It's like, it's a fun little shonen rivalry that can be kind of seen between Kid and Luffy. And I think with Wano, we will get like a better insight into Kid. Law is a bit more like allying with Luffy. He's not so much a rival, but I could see Luffy trying to you know, prove he's a one step above Kid trying to prove he's one step above Luffy, because they do have quite a bit of similarities. Blackbeard is kind of that final enemy that's been built up so much, whereas you could say Luffy and Kid is more like a back and forthy type of thing. Blackbeard and Luffy is a bit more unconventional, but I think with Kid and Luffy, that's a bit more, you know, I would see that being more likely, but I don't know what more future plans Oda has for Kid and Wano, or Kid after Wano, because I think a Wano Kid will definitely get his prevalence. I mean, we're already seeing more of him, and a lot of the Kid haters are kind of, you know, stepping down for their position, actually really liking him, because there's such this, he has such an interesting chemistry with Luffy that it's always, I think that was the best part of the recent chapter, the second half with all the Kid and Luffy stuff, that I love seeing them work together on the same panel. It's like, you could definitely tell there's like some interesting parallels between them, you know, with the way Oda did his paneling, and feels so shonen. That's the point I'm trying to get across. But I've also seen some people bring up the idea that Kobe might be Luffy's rival, and the big thing about supporting this idea is that Garp and Roger were rivals back in the day, and Garp was continuously capturing Roger, and they were always at it, and with Luffy and Kobe, they seem to be kind of like the next, you know, Roger and Garp. And I think, given, like, you know how I said, like, Luffy and Blackbeard have been established since early. I mean, Luffy and Kobe have been established since, like, episode 1, in the earlier chapters, you know? It's like, Luffy and Kobe have such a healthy rivalry, if that were to be one. It's even, like, you know, Luffy and Kid is a lot more shonen, but honestly, if, like, the thing is with Luffy and Kobe is, like, they have mutual respect for each other and are always happy when they see each other, but they're always, and Kobe's always going to be like, you know what, I am going to capture you, you know, we're on opposite sides. Luffy's like, yeah, you try. So there's always that interesting split between them. And we don't see Kobe too much, but if, like, towards the end of the series, I could see that rivalry being pushed a bit more. And honestly, I think that definitely works out, because though they are opposites, you know, in terms of, like, the sides, you know, Luffy, like, Luffy's rivals I've talked about both pirates, but Luffy's rival being a Marine who kind of has respect for him, and Luffy has respect for this Marine. I think there's definitely that more of a healthy rivalry you can see. And I mean, it's been established very, very early, and Kobe has been rising in his prominence. Like, Kobe has definitely gotten stronger from the weak boy he was in episode 1 to basically at the end of Enies Lobby, where he already kind of had some significant differences. The training really benefited him, and I mean, he's a very good rank right now. I believe he's a captain. I'll have it up on the screen if I'm wrong, but there's definitely, like, some growing prominence with Kobe, like there's a growing prominence in the world for Luffy. So I really like that. I think Kobe and Luffy kind of having more of this Garp-Roger type rivalry, like back in the day, I think that would be, you can make the argument for that as well. And I mean, overall, those are the main rivals for Luffy that I can think of. I mean, the cool thing about it is we don't have a concrete rival for Luffy. You can make arguments for, you know, for each one of these three. Like I mentioned, I think Blackbeard's a lot more like end of series type thing, and a lot more of like Blackbeard's a lot more like a serious rival, like a final battle type of thing. Whereas, yeah, Luffy and Kid are kind of more like this typical shonen, like, oh no, I'm going to be better than you. Oh no, I'm going to be better than you. You know, this kind of cockiness between both of them. That's a lot played off for gags, but they actually like work together really well, even though they don't always like working together. And you know, Luffy and Kobe, which is a lot more healthy rivalry of them being on opposite sides and mirroring Garp and Roger. There's definitely rivals that can be seen for Luffy. And I mean, the cool thing about One Piece is we don't have a concrete one, so it's like, all right, so Luffy has a rival for like up until the end of the series. Luffy has a rival on the opposite side. Luffy has a rival among the other supernovas and someone else in prison. You know, it's like, I really like that. So what do you guys think the concrete rival of one of Luffy's is, or do you think he just doesn't have one? I've always liked that. This is a fun casual discussion that I just thought about because my buddy Arblast, he was saying like, yep, I think I can consider Blackbeard a rival of Luffy, because he was because Blackbeard, because he's watching Impel Down right now, and I'm like, you know what, yeah, you can consider that, but you can also consider Kid, you can also consider Kobe. It's very interesting. Anyways, guys, I've been rambling on way too long. Thank you all so much for watching, and Ninja out. Peace, your bite, and have a good day. Oh yeah, by the way, Smoker sucks.